Hey everyone, Eddie Wilson here with the Think Realty Video Podcast. So excited to come to you today. I love when I get to do these shows. I know Avi is usually the one doing these shows, but for me, when we've got a big guest on, I like to jump into the seat and do the interviewing for you. For me, it's always fun to talk to those that have something new and exciting, maybe not necessarily new, but exciting. In the industry here. So the first thing I want to do is just thank all of our sponsors. We've got such great sponsors for the show.
This podcast is sponsored by Clint Coons of Anderson Business Advisors, nationally recognized for providing bulletproof asset protection, tax, and business strategy advice to real estate investors around the country. Go to www.getbulletprooftoday.com and receive Clint's book, Asset Protection for Real Estate Investors, for free while supplies last.
And don't forget to share these shows on your social media platforms. If you're watching from Facebook or Instagram or YouTube, wherever you're viewing this content, make sure you share it out with others. You are going to want to make sure you take notes on this podcast. This is a good friend of mine. I've asked him to step onto the stage many times at the Think Realty Conference because the value that he brings is amazing to our audience. Many of you may have heard the concept before, but actually understanding it is a totally different thing. And so I've asked him to come on today and share this concept that's not new by any means, but maybe new to you. And I think that you will enjoy this. And if you are struggling to make return on your investment and you are struggling for where to place your investment capital today, you're going to want to listen. If you're not earning continuous dividends, if you don't understand how to use the capital you have today to continually earn and grow your wealth, you're going to want to listen today. And I'm so excited for our guest. So our guest today is Brent Kesler with the Money Multiplier. Brent, are you with us?
Hey, I'm with you, Eddie. Can you hear me?
I can hear you great. Thanks, Brent, for joining us on the show today. I appreciate it. Looks like, so you are coming from Lake of the Ozarks, correct?
That is right. Today, I spend the summer in the Lake of the Ozarks up here in Camden, Missouri. So that's where we're at today. So I appreciate you having me on, and I'm excited to share with your audience about this concept.
Yeah, Brent, so kind of just, here's what we'll do. I just walked on the elevator with you. We got a minute or two. Give me the 30,000-foot view of what this concept is, and then we'll dive in deeper.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thanks, Eddie. So, okay. Well, that's a good analogy, walking on the elevator and you ask me, say, hey, Brent, tell me, what do you do for a living? Well, Eddie, here's what I do. I teach people how to build wealth through your own debts and expenses. And they're like, what? Build wealth through my own debts and expenses? Yep, absolutely. That's what I do. I teach you how to build wealth through your own debts and expenses that you already have. In other words, I teach this thing called the infinite banking concept, how to become your own banker. Now, there's a guy named R. Nelson Nash. He wrote a book called Becoming Your Own Banker, and that is kind of like the Bible of what we teach. He's like the grandfather, the Mac Daddy of the banking. And our company is called the Money Multiplier. We're located in Port Orange, Florida, just up next to Daytona Beach. So www.themoneymultiplier.com. That's our company. And actually, Eddie, I became a customer of this concept back in 2008. I first heard about it in 2006. I saw somebody present it to me, and I thought, man, it looks really, really good, but it looks just way too good to be true. I'm sure you've heard something like that before. You've seen something, you've watched something, and it looks too good to be true, right? So anyway, I heard about it in 2006. I never implemented it into my life until 2008. But when I did, in February of 2008, I was actually $984,711 in debt. That's how much I owed to the third-party creditors. And at the time, I had chiropractic offices. I'm a chiropractor. That's my background. I don't practice chiropractic anymore. I sold my last clinic in 2017. But when I first heard this concept, I was almost $1 million in debt. You're probably thinking, well, right, so how does a chiropractor have almost $1 million in debt? Well, I had my house that I lived in, my student loans, my clinics, and I had a house at the time at the Lake of the Ozarks that wasn't paid for, a boat, a wave runner. If you live on a lake, you have to have a boat and a wave runner. I'm also like an airplane pilot. So as an airplane pilot, you have to have your own airplane, right? So it didn't take me a lot to become $1 million in debt. Well, I was able to take this concept and apply it, and I was able to pay that debt off in 39 months, 3 years, 3 months. I didn't have to work any harder, didn't have to change my cash flow, take any additional risk, or lose control. All I did was added one step in my financial life. And the concept, just to give you that high level view, basically this tool, it's a tool to build and create wealth. It's been around for over 200 years. Our tax code has only been here since 1913. And the vehicle that we use, are you ready? So wait for it. The vehicle that we use to build wealth is a whole life insurance policy in a mutual company that pays dividends. Now you're probably scratching your head and you're saying, what? I'm going to build wealth with a whole life insurance policy? I know everything there is to know about life insurance, and I never heard about building wealth through that vehicle. Well, that's right. But so the key is, Eddie, that this is not any life insurance policy. This is a specific whole life insurance policy in a mutual insurance company that pays dividends. It has to be specially designed, specifically engineered for high cash value that you're going to use immediately, not years down the road, okay? It's not like you have to have a ton of money to put into this thing. You don't. You start at the amount that you want to start with. And when you put money into that policy, into this vehicle, you're going to be able to start using that money immediately. And my definition of immediately is within 30 days. And kind of just to go through, okay, so I told you that, okay, so I've been a customer of this since 2008. I've been teaching this since 2012. I teach this all around the country. That's how I met you, Eddie. I was on the stage at Think Realty, right? I think you heard me speak at another event. You asked me to come and speak at your Think Realty event. I've been teaching this since 2012. I have over 2,400 clients in every state of the country. And here's the thing. 91% of my clients that have been with me a year or longer come back and do more. They want more of what they started. Now, the reason I tell you that, because if this concept wasn't working, there's no way that 9 out of 10 are coming back to do more. So that's what I teach. I teach people how to build wealth through your own debts, through your own expenses that you have. And I teach you how to recycle, recapture that money, keep it all in the family, keep all the money in the family. So there's no money that's being leaked out to other people. And the growth inside of the policy is guaranteed. You have a guaranteed growth inside of the policy. It's not me telling you that it's guaranteed. It doesn't matter because it's in the policy contract. And the cool thing, Eddie, is it doesn't matter what's going on in the external world. The growth is guaranteed. In other words, it doesn't matter if there's a pandemic or no pandemic. It doesn't matter if the stock market goes up or down. It doesn't matter if the real estate market goes up or down. If your 401k, your qualified plan goes up or down. It doesn't matter if people are out there protesting, if they're having riots or no riots, if you love Trump, hate Trump, you're a Republican, Democrat. All of those external factors do not come into play. This is a place where your money grows guaranteed, tax-free, and you have use of that money immediately.
That's awesome. Brent, it's interesting to me. And actually, just real quick, the way that we found you was my CTO, Tyler Van Winkle, and I were talking about this concept. And I said, I read a book, and I feel like I need to understand this concept. Tyler sat on a plane next to you and said, what do you do? And you gave him that spiel. And I was like, Tyler, you got to connect Brent with us because this is what I've been talking to you about for a while because I don't grasp it. I don't understand it. And I want to know more about it. So, it's interesting to me that you kind of hit the nail on the head there with people's understanding of whole life. You know, like we've heard from Dave Ramsey or Susie Orman or, you know, whoever you listen to, that you can't build wealth through whole life. You can't, you know, the whole life is not a great investment vehicle. And I think that the important part of what you just said is it's not the traditional whole life policy that we're normally used to. What Dave Ramsey or Susie might be talking about, this is different, correct?
Oh, absolutely. It is different. Yes, it is not a normal whole life policy. And anyway, Eddie, I used to be a big Dave Ramsey follower. I used to record Susie Orman on Saturday night, right? If I wasn't home,
Sure.
I wanted to make sure that I caught her. And then I kind of learned how this process works, and I learned that they were lying to me. Now, I'm not saying what Dave Ramsey says and what Susie Orman says is wrong. As a matter of fact, a lot of my colleagues have tried to challenge them to a debate to talk about whole life insurance, but they don't talk about it. See, the thing that Dave Ramsey does, for example, is he tells you to live below your means, right? I mean, he shows you, he has strategies of how to get you out of debt. In other words, just to get you back to zero. But then after you get back to zero, then he tells you what? He says, buy term and invest the rest. Well, who do you know that's investing the rest, right? And he tells you to live below your means. Well, have you ever Googled Dave Ramsey's house? I'm going to challenge your listeners to go Google Dave Ramsey's house and see what you come up with, a house in Tennessee. And here's a guy telling you to live below your means. Now, it might just be below his means. But see, the thing we have to do, we have to think not short term, we have to think long term, right? And again, this process that I teach, it's not an investment vehicle. Like, I'm never going to tell you or the audience how to invest. Some people like to invest in real estate, stocks or bonds, antique cars, Bitcoin, cryptocurrencies, whatever it is that you like to invest in, you should still continue to do that. And if you're good at it, continue to do that. But this is the process of what we're going to do to make the investment. This allows us to keep the money in the family without losing control, without taking any additional risk, without having to work any harder, and most importantly, without changing your cash flow. So I'm not going to change your cash flow whatsoever. All we're going to do is we're going to add one step in your financial life. That's it. One step we're going to add to your financial life. Now, the last thing that I will tell you the difference between me, Dave Ramsey, and Susie Orman is Dave Ramsey and Susie Orman. They are entertainers. They're talking to the masses of people. See, so both Dave and Susie are never going to come to your house and sit down with you at your kitchen table or get on a call with you, a Zoom call, a phone call, or meet with you one-on-one and talk about your own financial life and what's going on in your life. They're not going to do it. They're not going to sit down and talk to you and go over your own personal financial situation. And that's what I do. That's what I do every day of my life is I meet with people and I teach them how to build and create wealth with only adding one step into their financial life.
That's awesome. You know, so Brent, I learned about this concept from you, have studied it quite a bit since meeting you. To me, the most valuable thing that I've seen in this is the fact that when you're putting this money into this whole life policy, and then you're borrowing against it versus pulling the money out, you're never diminishing the amount of money. I wrote a book a year or two ago called Time, Wealth, and Purpose. And I redefine wealth as having enough for today while never diminishing my amount for tomorrow. You know, I'm a big passive investor. I invest in, passive real estate all over the country. And then it resonated with me once I understood this concept because you're actually never diminishing the amount of the policy. Is that correct? And can you can you explain that? Because to me, I think that's one of the most powerful vehicles in this.
Oh, that is powerful. And as a matter of fact, Eddie, if it's all right with you, at the end of the call, I'll share with people. Well, I'll just kind of throw it out there now. Like if you go to my website, which is www.themoneymultiplier.com, and if you go to the top of the homepage where it says resources, and there's a box on there to click, it says presentation, you can watch my full hour and a half presentation on this method. And it goes into a lot of what you just said, Eddie. And that is key. Yes, because the thing we're doing is when we're using the money just from our policy, we are not using our money. So what we're simply doing is we're putting our policy up for collateral. We're taking a loan from the general fund of the insurance company. So our money is still compounding. It's still growing. It's in that tax-free environment. Even though we're using it, there's no interruption of compound interest whatsoever. So all of our money is still continuing to compound and grow, even though we're using our money. And that is absolutely huge. And let me just give you an example. I work with real estate investors all around the country, and they love this concept because what they're able to do is they're able to buy the properties they want. They're able to fund their fix and flips. They're able to loan money. And the thing they do is they borrow from the policy. They put their policy up for collateral, take a loan from the general fund of the insurance company. They invest, they lend, they do fix and flips, whatever they're doing with the money. So that money is out there in motion. It's constantly moving, but they never touched the money in the policy. It is still growing and compounding at that guaranteed tax-free growth rate. And let me just tell you what that guaranteed tax-free growth rate is. It's 4%. That is the lowest that it can ever be. Now, it's not ever 4% because of the dividends. The dividends take it above and beyond the 4%, even though dividends are not guaranteed in the policy. All of the companies, Eddie, that I use have been paying dividends for over 100 consecutive years without fail. But let's just take the dividends off of the table. Let's say the insurance company is going to stop paying dividends. The worst that it could ever happen is that your growth inside of your policy can be 4%. Now, that's not a taxable 4%. That is a tax-free 4%. And what is our largest eroder of wealth? Our largest eroder of wealth is taxes. So what we do, Eddie, we have money that we have that's growing and compounding in this internal tax-free environment. Doesn't matter what's going on out in the outside world. It's still growing, and we have use of the money as well. So for example, let's say we take that money, because I do a lot of hard money lending, right? So for example, if I make a loan to somebody and I'm going to get 10% interest, all right, well, I'm going to get that 10% interest from the person I loaned just the money to, but I'm also still continuing to get that guaranteed growth inside of my policy. So I'm double dipping. I'm not losing control, not working any harder or taking any additional risk with my money. All I've done, Eddie, essentially, is I've added one step into my financial life. And here's one other kicker. Whenever you borrow money, whenever you put your policy up for collateral and you borrow from the general fund of the insurance company, your loan never has to be paid back. You do not have to pay back your policy loan. No, no, no. See, a loan on the policy is simply a prepayment of the death benefit. We are borrowing against our death benefit. So in other words, what we're doing is we're using the living benefits while we're living. We're using the money while we're living. We're using our death benefit, a portion of our death benefit while we're living. Most people think of life insurance, oh, it doesn't do me any good. It's going to do my kids, my grandkids good, the next generation after I pass. No, we're going to use that money while we're living. In other words, what we're going to do, Eddie, is we're going to use our good dollars today, and we're going to pay them back with weaker dollars in the future. Because see, okay, so the insurance company can never, ever lose. They can't ever lose, because it's not an if you're going to die, pass, graduate, you use whatever word you want. Sure. It's when you die. And the death benefit will always be higher than the cash amount, than the loan amount. So the insurance company can't lose, because you're guaranteed to die. And when you do, the death benefit will pay off any outstanding loan. Your beneficiaries will get all of the assets that that loan just paid off, plus they will get the additional money will go to them tax-free. So not only are you using your money building wealth, but you're leaving a legacy as well.
That's awesome. You know, I love the concept. I'm a huge fan of it. I think it's something that I wish, you know, the entire country knew about, because I feel like more people would take advantage of it. I've really got two more questions, and you know, the first one, and I'm just going to ask you both. That way, you kind of, you know, maybe answer both of them together. The first one is I know a lot of people are concerned, or maybe they don't understand how to seed or put money into the policy. You know, so if they want their policy if they want to put $200,000 in, can they just put $200,000 in today, or do they have to spread that out over the next couple of years? And then second question is the complexity of it. I know a lot of people listening, you know, probably what prevents them from ever taking action on it is just they feel like maybe it's too complex. How easy is the transactions? If I'm going to put my $200,000 in, or $500,000, or $10,000 in, how easy is it to get that money out? Is it as simple as a debit card, or is it as hard as filing paperwork and using a lawyer every time?
Yeah, well, that's the cool thing about it. Look, Eddie, I am not the sharpest tool in the shed or the brightest candle in the cake. It took me 13 trimesters to pass 10 trimesters of chiropractic college because I kept failing classes. After I did pass school, I couldn't practice for 2 years because I failed part 3 of national boards 3 different times. And they only give the test every 6 months, right? So I am not the brightest candle on the cake. So I like to keep things very simple. I don't like complex things at all. Okay, so a couple things that you're asking. Number one is, how much do I have to start with, and how do I pay the premium? Well, the amount that you start with is totally up to you. Because see, I don't care if you make $10 an hour or $10,000 an hour. Everybody needs to break the bonds of financial slavery we don't even realize that we're in, and start taking control of our own financial life. And quite honestly, people are sick and tired of taking the bloodbath in the stock market. They're tired of their 401ks. They're tired of their IRAs. They're tired of their qualified plans. They're just tired of it, right? Where else better to store and put your money and keep the money and be able to use it other than a whole life policy in a mutual company that pays dividends with a guaranteed tax-free growth rate, and the government's completely out of your hair. So again, how you put dollars into the premium is up to you. What you can put it in monthly, quarterly, twice a year, or annually. For example, let's say you said, Eddie, I want to put in $1,000 a month into the policy. You can do $1,000 a month, $3,000 a quarter, $6,000 twice a year, $12,000 annually, and you can change the mode however you want, and you can also lower it. You could also lower it by at least 60%. So if you start with $1,000 a month, you could come down to $400 a month at least, maybe even lower, because the policy gets more efficient each and every day. It's not me telling you that. That is guaranteed. It's in your contract. You see that in your policy contract before you ever accept, agree, pay for the policy. That's the way that it works, right? So it's guaranteed. So it gets better each and every day. Today's better than yesterday. Tomorrow's going to be better than today. Now, as far as how you put the money in, okay, I will tell you this, Eddie. I have never had anybody that's been with me for 2.5 years or longer that has ever stopped paying their premium into their whole life policy in a mutual company that pays dividends, because of the growth, because of the internal growth of the policy. For example, when you watch my presentation at themoneymultiplier.com, you will see at the end of the 5th year, the guy puts in $10,000 and he has $13,000 immediately. That's right. He puts in 10 and he immediately has 13,000. I will tell you, Eddie, the oldest policy that I have, and I own 19 of these policies, and I designed my policy the same way I designed yours. I don't put any secret sauce on mine that I don't put on yours. My oldest policy is 12 years old. I started it in February of 2008, and here we are in July of 2020 talking. So my oldest policy is 12 years old. This year, when I put in $1 into that policy, Eddie, I was able to use $1.61. Now, that is a 61% growth on my money. Now, how much of my money do you think I want growing at 61% and even more? Because it's only going to get better next year, the year after. The correct answer, right, is all of it, every single bit of it. But how you put the money in is up to you. Generally, when we're paying premium into the policy, we're continuing to pay it, right? It doesn't have to be that way, But when you got your money growing, that's the way that you want it to go. And okay, so the main thing that we have to avoid when we design the policy is we have to avoid this thing that we call a MEC, M-E-C, capital letters, M-E-C, Mike, Echo, Charlie. Okay, a MEC stands for a modified endowment contract. And if your policy, if your insurance policy becomes a MEC, it's no longer treated as an insurance contract. It's treated as an investment, and it's subject to taxation. So we don't want that. So when we design the policy, we design it to fall underneath that MEC line, so it does not become a MEC. And even if you mess up in your policy, like down the road, and you try to put too much money into it, the insurance company won't allow you because we originally designed it so it will not become a MEC. So those are the only guidelines that we have to follow. And when I do a strategy call with your listeners, right, after they watch my full presentation and we schedule a strategy call, I go over their own personal situation with them, and I help them to design the policy that's best for them based on where they're at in their own financial life. So did I answer both of those questions?
Yeah, you answered both of them, and I appreciate that very much. Just kind of like give us a brief overview of how they can take action on what you just said. You know, I mean, so much information, and I honestly, like, just being totally transparent with you, it took me a time or two, and I did go to your website, and I watched the videos, and that helped me so much. I mean, do you think that's the next action they should take? I mean, everything you've said is so provocative. You know, what should they do? Is that the next step?
Yeah, absolutely right, Eddie. That is the best thing to do, is to go to the website, themoneymultiplier.com, and either at the bottom of the homepage, all right, there's a word that says presentation, click on that, or you can go to the top of the homepage and it says under the tab called resources, you can also click on presentation. And what that does, Eddie, is that gives you my full 90+ minute presentation on this concept. Now, I know what a couple of your listeners are thinking. They're thinking 90 minutes. I don't have 90 minutes. Well, yeah, you better have 90 minutes, guys, because this is about your financial life, right? I mean, this will significantly change your financial life. So the thing you may have to do in order to take 90 minutes out of your day, you may have to turn off The Bachelor. You may have to turn off The Voice, turn off TV. You may have to skip Bobby's soccer practice or Susie's piano lessons one time. But I'm telling you, this information will drastically improve your financial life. And in that presentation, Eddie, if they want to watch it from start to finish, it's all there to watch start to finish. If they want to watch it in sections, it's broken down into 10 individual sections. I also have a downloadable attachment that they can print out to follow along with my examples. So 3 main things that I'm going to show when you watch that presentation. Number 1, I'm going to show you how you can borrow at a higher rate than what you're earning and make money all day long. Yeah, that's right. Borrow at a higher rate than what you're earning, make money all day long. Number 2, I'm going to show you how to get all the money back for all the cars you're going to buy, drive, and own for the rest of your life. So what that means is not only do you buy the car and get the car, but you also get the money back that you just paid for that car. And if you can do it for a car, guess what else you can do it for? A boat, a bicycle, an airline ticket, real estate, a house. So I'm going to show you how to recapture and recycle all of the money. And the third thing is I'm going to go through something called the Money Multiplier Map. And that Money Multiplier Map, on that example, I'm going to show you how a client of ours, he had $470,000 of third-party debt that he owed to 12 third-party creditors. And he was able to pay that $470,000 off in 61 months. Now, if he would have done it the conventional way, the way that we've been taught, the way that we've been programmed, it would have taken him 214 months. But we did it in 61 months. He paid off $470,000 of debt with a $160,000 outside injection, all without working harder, changing his cash flow, taking any additional risk, adding one step to his financial life. So look, Eddie, these are the tools that the wealthy have been using for over 200 years. This is how Walt Disney World got started. This is how Disneyland got built. This is how Ray Kroc funded McDonald's, and the mascot we all know is Ronald McDonald. This is how Pampered Chef got started before Warren Buffett bought Pampered Chef. These are the tools of the wealthy. See, Eddie, there's us and the wealthy, us and the super wealthy. We all have access to the same financial tools. The difference between the wealthy and us is they use the tools differently than we do. Now that I know how to play the game, I'm playing the game right along with them. This concept has been around for over 200 years. The Rockefellers, the Rothschilds, the Morgans, the Stanleys, and the Barclays. It's not something on trial. It's not something that we're just testing out. So here's what Warren Buffett said. I think about this quote every day of my life, Eddie. I don't know when he said it, but I heard it for the first time October of 2008. And here's what he says, and this is how simple it is. This is how simple it is. If poor people would just start doing what rich people do, they wouldn't be poor anymore. So all we're going to do is we're going to mimic and imitate what the wealthy do with these simplistic procedures that have been around for almost 2 centuries, but nobody ever told us about them.
Wow, that is awesome. You know, every time I hear you speak, I get so motivated by this, and you know, it's so exciting. I know we're running out of time, but I really, if you're watching Think Realty, the podcast, make sure you go to the moneymultiplier.com and see what Brent's talking about. You owe it to yourself, you owe it to your family, you owe it to the legacy you're trying to leave behind. You know, I have so many rabbit holes I would love to go down with you, because I came from a family who owns some small banks. I watched our small banks use, and that's actually where I heard of the first concept, was because they gave everybody vice president status so they could actually take out a whole life policy on them for a long-term investment on the bank. I mean, like, there's so many things we could dive into, but what you're saying is so accurate, and that is there are tools that the wealthy use every day that we're just not educated on and we don't understand, and we owe it to ourselves and to our children and grandchildren to get educated on these tools, because like you said, if we continue to do the same thing we've always done and we're currently poor, then we better change up what we're doing and what we're thinking. And so thank you so much for joining us today. I appreciate it so much.
Eddie, thank you. And that's a great point on the banks that you just brought up. As a matter of fact, conventional banks are the #1 purchasers of whole life insurance in the world. They own more whole life insurance than all of their land and their buildings combined. And since the year 2013, banks have quadrupled. They've quadrupled the amount of whole life insurance policies that they have purchased. And now they're not buying index universal. Sure. They're not buying variable. They're not buying term. They're buying whole life insurance in mutual companies that pay dividends. So why, Eddie, do you think banks are buying so much whole life insurance? Is it because they're stupid, or they know something the rest of us don't know? Yeah. So all we're going to do is mimic and imitate exactly what they've been doing. So that was a great point that you brought that up.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Brent, for taking the time this morning to be on the show. And make sure everybody goes to moneymultiplier.com. Thank you, Brent, for being on with us.
Thanks, Eddie. I appreciate it. Talk soon.
All right. Thank you so much, Think Realty, for watching today. I hope that you found some inspiration and some new knowledge that maybe you didn't know about.
This podcast was brought to you by Nevada Real Estate Investments, your premier source for cash flow investment property. Visit www.turnkeyrealestateinvestments.com to learn more.
Again, you owe it to yourself to go to this website, themoneymultiplier.com, and go around his site, look around it. It's a great site, but again, go watch his presentation. He's done this presentation at so many Think Realty shows, and I know that so many Think Realty users and guests and members have had their lives changed because of what Brent teaches. And I'm so grateful for him and his staff and his daughter Hannah and all those, Chris Noggle, and all those that have been a part of the Think Realty ecosystem and helping you find financial freedom. and find better ways to invest in real estate and the world around you. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you to our sponsors that have made this show possible.
This podcast is sponsored by Clint Coons of Anderson Business Advisors, nationally recognized for providing bulletproof asset protection, tax, and business strategy advice to real estate investors around the country. Go to www.getbulletprooftoday.com and receive Clint's book, Asset Protection for Real Estate Investors, for free while supplies last.
And again, thank you so much to Brent and his staff, and thank you to you, Think Really listener. Make sure you go and you share this show. There's somebody else that needs this show. Yes, it's good for you, but share it with someone else, because there are people in your direct circle that need something like this, and you owe it to them to share it with them as well. And continue to watch us, follow us, like us, subscribe on all the social media channels. And if you haven't picked up the latest Think Realty magazine, go to your Barnes & Noble and buy one off the newsstand there. Or if you're scared of COVID, you don't want to go out of the house, then subscribe online and we'll send it directly to your door. But anyways, thank you so much for watching and being part of Think Realty. Have a great day and happy investing.